there are at least four applications and the use of Paro in healthcare. The first one, as we can see, is that Paro may provide emotional support, comfort, companionship. We just talked about the Japanese example. Emotional support for individuals with dementia, autism, and other conditions requiring therapeutic interventions. That's quite a significant array of supports.
The unique thing about Paro among social robots is that Dr. Shibata has made a very determined effort successfully to encourage research into Paro by medical researchers and aged care researchers and so on. So as a consequence, there is quite an extensive research literature on Paro. So individual experimental studies where people have used Paro in various settings, studies that compare the use of Paro with, say, just a plush toy, a non-robotic plush toy. So there's quite a range of those. And then there's what's called meta-analysis, where people take a range of studies and try to summarize all the different effects across a range of studies to get an idea. So it's not just one study, but it's looking at all the studies. And the conclusion of those studies, the individual studies and the meta-analyses, is that Paro is effective in things like reducing stress. And, they can measure stress in different ways through skin devices attached to the skin, for example, to measure people's stress. So it has been shown to reduce people's stress. Anxiety is often measured by people's facial expressions. So you can use video analysis as a person looking happy, sad, stressed, and you can measure that. And even pain. So people, again, are asked about their pain levels, or they can indicate their pain levels. And it has been shown that Paro has the capacity to reduce pain, and it's theorized then that is through the release of hormones such as endorphins, which help to reduce people's experience of pain. So the scientific literature seems to suggest, anyway, or does suggest that Paro is effective in reducing pain and stress, and this is why it has been approved as a medical device, because it's very, very challenging to get any sort of device approved as a medical device by the Federal Drugs Administration in the US and similar bodies in Europe. So Dr. Shibata has piloted Paro through this process of getting approved as a medical device, which means that it can be, as we said before, perhaps paid for by insurance companies, or a body like the HSE or the NHS in Britain or similar bodies across the world can legitimately purchase Paro for this therapeutic use.
And that's pretty why you got a medical device license as well from the FDA?
Yeah. And as I said, these are hard to get, and you have to show, you can't just register anything as a medical device, you actually have to show that it has a therapeutic effect. So that has been done with Paro, unlike any other social robot.
Thanks for that, Perry. As you can also see, one of the imputed benefits of being exposed to a Paro is that it encourages wider communicative and social engagement, socialization, the ability to have conversations, and to improve communication skills. And if it's used as a companion, as Perry was alluding to in Japan, for instance, it reduces social isolation among older people and people who have been hospitalized.
Yeah, and when you look at how Paro is used, there's different ways of doing it, and one is when an individual care worker, could be a nurse, could be a social worker, could be a person working in a hospital or a nursing home, brings Paro along to an individual who's in a nursing home or a hospital and basically hands Paro over to them. And there's research on how doing that in different ways can have different effects, but hands Paro over, and then that individual then, like I was before, can hold Paro, chat away to it, and so on. One of the issues is the weight of Paro can be problematic in nursing homes. Often people, especially in advanced old age, lose a lot of muscle mass in their upper body and their arms, and it actually can be quite difficult to hold something as heavy as a Paro. But it can be put on a table, and people, we have evidence of people chatting away to Paro on a table. So in a nursing home, Paro might be sitting on the table, a person might be eating their lunch, Paro is there making sounds on the table, and the person can be seen. We have video evidence of people chatting away to Paro while they're having their lunch. So providing a conversation, keeping communication skills going, and so on. And then another use in these settings, and one where we studied it in Dublin, was where people would collectively engage with Paro. So Paro might be put in the middle of a table. And like anything that's of interest, people would be talking about the robot, it would be interacting, they'd be passing it from one to the other, they'd be trying things out, having a laugh with Paro, and that sort of thing. So stimulating communication skills. Now you could do that with any device. You could do that with a bowl of flowers or something like that. But it is interactive, and people seem to find it very attractive to interact with Paro. So it's very good for stimulating those communication skills, especially amongst people who maybe have issues with language and memory, who might have difficulty holding conversations about other things.
And Barry, isn't it true that we've alluded to already, but that some of the perhaps concerns that some users have reported on their use of Paro has been the fact that it doesn't speak?
Yeah, and people talk about one of the criticisms that's been raised about social robots generally, and especially about Paro, is what might be called infantilization. Mm-hmm. That using something like Paro that doesn't speak is turning people back into pre-linguistic infants. Yes. Basically, and I can see some argument in that a person might feel self-conscious, though we haven't ever experienced it ourselves, that a person feels like a child when they're holding Paro. But you could see how, from an outside observer, maybe if they saw that this was happening, they might think, well, that person isn't being treated with dignity or is being treated like a child. Of course, dogs don't speak, cats don't speak, and we don't say a person interacting with a dog, well, isn't it terrible that the dog can't talk?
Yes.
In fact, we'd get something of a shock if the dog could talk. No. So I think I can see where the argument is coming from, but I wouldn't worry too much about that side of things myself, I think, and the evidence doesn't seem to show that that's a really big issue. It's more of a theoretical issue than an actual issue, I think.
Probably a philosophical one.
Indeed, yeah.